Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Kruger. This is Alpha Shift Radio with our 17th wonderful episode. Glad to be here with you. Back with me tonight after a short hiatus is Don Kowaleski. Hi, Don.
It's good to be back. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. You got some great life changes going on.
Just a couple, job change.
Some exciting things, and so first day at the new job, and we're waiting to get going in the studio, and Don is racing in at the last minute. He was going to hold it and not go to the bathroom just so we could record and be on schedule. Thank you, Don, for your profession.
Right, during the interview process, I did not mention that on Thursday evenings I had a podcast. And so on my first day, I just felt like, okay, I'm still talking. I'm still getting oriented. I probably can't be sorry, got the podcast audience. I got to get out of here.
Got to get out of here.
So I should have negotiated that.
Should have negotiated his podcast night. But just so he got here and made it happen so he could be here for all of you. Tonight we have a very special treat. This is a special treat for me. A dear friend of both mine and Don's, Michelle Forsythe, is going to be our guest tonight. She's been following our work and she admires it very much and volunteered to come on and talk about some of her dating experiences. Michelle, say hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So glad to have you. You are married to our dear friend, Pete Forsythe. And frankly, in my opinion, he's lucky to have you. You're wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And
it truly puts the better in better half.
It does. So, sometimes I get triggered by that whole, why is she the better half? But in Pete's case, yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I get to say, oh yeah, you can tell him, and I get to say that, and I just want to clarify this for our audience. I get to say that because Pete tormented me all through college. He would go into my Franklin planner. I was a very organized guy, and he would go in and pull out the most recent 3 days. And we'd be in our house meeting, and I'd open up my planner and be like, what the fuck? And he was the president of the house, and he's up there laughing, sitting there with the gavel. I'm like, screw you.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, that was me and Pete. And so, but we were dear friends. And so, Michelle, you are a health coach?
I am, yeah. So I was a teacher, math teacher, for 17 years in the public school system, and that was my dream. Ever since I was in fifth grade, was to be a teacher. And so I fulfilled that dream. And in the process, I gained some weight along the way and needed to lose about 50 pounds.
Okay.
And so I tried this program. It worked, which was amazing. And I thought in the back of my mind, this would be my plan B to kind of get out of education. And it worked. I started getting some clients. And so here I am, a full-time health coach, and absolutely loving it.
Wow. Congratulations for that. It's sometimes it's rare for people to really, follow that passion, that side hustle, and make it full time. So good for you. I see your posts on Facebook. I see how passionate you are about helping people lose weight, about healthy recipes. That's so great.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Thank you.
So in some ways, you still are a teacher. You have taken the 17 years and lesson planning and grades and making milestones, and now you're doing it for adults, and I think that's great. That's a skill, and you radiate your online presence is magnetic. It's like, okay, what's next? What's she gonna do today? Inspiring quote. So you're doing great work.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I've got a lot of things on the horizon that I cannot wait to do. I'll talk a little bit about this, but have you read the book, The Secret?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
many times.
So I believe it's already happening. It's like I want to just scream so many things and say, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and it haven't happened yet. Not everybody knows that they're going to happen yet, but I believe they're going to happen.
Okay.
So stay tuned, because I'm really excited for what I have coming up, and
cool.
Just some really exciting things that involve dancing. That'll be my little teaser.
Cool. Good for you. That's exciting.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that.
Good.
But I'm loving what I'm doing in the eye. It's a lot like teaching, only more on an individual basis, and really the difference is that the people that I work with are the ones that come and meet me halfway. They show up, and that's what I think is the best part about it, because in education, that's not always the case. And so it's hard to engage, but I'll tell you what, I've learned a lot through engaging students and getting kids to be excited to do what they do, and that really has transferred well into, my Facebook Lives or different things like that, trying to engage people in what I'm doing now. So
fantastic, Michelle. Wow. Well, as you know, our audience is men, primarily men, who are looking to better themselves and looking to better their relationships. And I would love to pick your brain about a few things. Now, you're married to Pete. Now, Pete's the first man you've ever been with, right?
No.
Okay, so you have some experience to share.
I have some experience. So I was married in '02.
Okay.
And so my first husband and I were married for quite some time. It felt like an eternity, but we divorced in 2009.
Okay.
And, that was, we have 2 children from that marriage. And after that, I basically kind of dove into my career at the time and raising my 3 young children. My daughter was like 1.
Okay.
And she's now 11 and Tyler is 13.
Okay.
So I took some time just to kind of hone in on my career and raising my children. And so I didn't date right away after my divorce. And then once I did, that's when everything kind of it became for me in the summertime like a full-time job.
Dating was a full-time job?
Yeah, dating was a full-time job. So I had my kids 50% of the time, and so I had to line it up when I didn't have my kids, when I would go out on dates, and the work that you put into going out on a date, to work and do that is very difficult. So during the summer was when I really hit it hard in 2015, just kind of 37 years old. My first marriage, I was 18 when I met him, so I didn't really know a lot about myself, much less, getting married and things like that. So I didn't make the best choices for myself. But then here I was at 37 for the first time really dating.
So what was that like?
I need to figure this out.
Yeah, what was that like dating at 37? What kind of guys were you dating? What was the experience like?
Well, I first started on Match.com. That was the only place I really knew to go.
Okay.
And I ended up in a long-term relationship off the first date, which is very rare, I think.
Wow.
And it didn't work out, which was a good thing. I can look back and say that now. And then after that year, that summer, after that, I developed a dating rubric, because I thought, I really need to do this right the second time. And I need to make better, choices for what I'm looking for and what am I looking for. And being a math teacher, I wanted to assign a numerical value to these experiences.
What is a dating rubric?
Okay, you are such a teacher, Michelle.
Yeah.
I know what a rubric is because I'm married to a teacher.
You're married to a teacher, so you're going to have to explain this rubric thing to me and most of the audience.
Right. So a rubric, is like what you would get before a big project. This is how you're going to be graded, essentially, in these different areas. And at the time when I developed the rubric, we were dating at standards-based grading. So you would get a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1. So naturally, that's what I did. Okay. And I created this rubric using that numbered system. And in education, the 3 always meant you were proficient, and that's pretty much what your goal was, to get students to be proficient in whatever standard you were talking about. So I kind of did the same thing with my rubric, and so I basically took the things that were important to me and broke them up into, let's just call them domains. That's another educational term. And I would start with the 3. And I would say, what do I want this to look like in this area? So the best example I have is if they were independent, let's just say, and they, in regards to owning a home. Okay. So a 3 would be if they owned their own home. Okay. And then I would work down to the 2 and the 1. A 2 would be, for me in the Midwest and just kind of where I live, it would be if they rented, a duplex or a condo or something, that would be a 2. Okay. And then a 1 would be that they lived at home with their parents.
Sure.
Okay. And then a 4 might be something they had a nice house, and then they also had other assets, maybe a cottage up north or a boat or something like that.
Okay, so it's a grading scale.
Yeah, it's a grading scale.
Okay, so it's a great, and that's good. And so you created this looking for your ideal man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to put it in academic terms, it would be like if you were writing a research paper, it's like, does it have a clear subject line? Does it have 3 supporting paragraphs?
Okay.
And then we get, a kid gets a 3 or a 4.
Sure.
Does it have a logical conclusion statement? And then is the spelling correct? Is the name in the right corner of the margins right? So that's a rubric. So you're speaking very directly to Dave right now, especially if you listen to last week's episode.
Yes. So no, I'm all about Yeah, no, I think that's great. And what I also like about that is you're actually kind of saying to the universe, you're being very clear about what you want. Yeah. Because obviously what you want is for these men to score 3 or 4 in these categories. And so when you're keeping your mind on what you want, you're going to tend to get it. So do you have any fun failure stories of crazy guys?
Yeah, I do have a lot of crazy stories.
Yeah, tell us some of the things to look out for and not to be. For the single guys out there who are dating. Okay, keep your clothes on.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. Like on the first date.
Okay, so don't start getting naked in the car and expecting to get, okay.
Or even just trying to show off your chest or anything like that. You know what I mean?
What do you mean? I've been on a few first dates and I've never displayed my chest. What does that look like? How does that happen?
I don't even know how it happened, but it just kind of happened, and all of a sudden I turned around and there he was with his shirt off. And
wow.
Just kind of standing there. And it was in the parking lot, I was getting into my car. So it was
why did he take his shirt off in the parking lot?
Oh my gosh. And you always wonder if he did it that time. Did he do it once before and it worked? Yeah. So it became his move.
Yeah. Maybe it's his mating call. It's I'm taking my shirt off. Come over here and rub my chest. Let's go back to your place, honey.
And that was not on your rubric, the shirt on off first date thing.
No, it was not on my rubric. One of the things that I did do on dates that I feel is really good dating advice, but I would always try to have the date centralized around an activity.
Okay.
So it might be something like playing darts or playing pool. And in my profile, I had I had a friend write my profile. I think that's advice number 1: never write your own profile.
Okay. Interesting.
Because somebody else is always going to give you a better description of you than you will. Because for you, it tends to feel like you're bragging.
Yeah.
But it really does work out well if you can have somebody that knows you well to write your profile for you. But anyway, in my profile, I had put in there something about playing basketball, and I don't remember exactly what it was. But so I would oftentimes take my date, and our first date would be in the park, and we'd play a game of horse.
Okay.
And I'd always say they couldn't beat me, and only one guy ever beat me.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, Michelle, this is you get my radar going up here. Were you always deciding what to do on the first date, or were they making the invitation and suggesting the activity?
It was once I found out that I had a lot of success with actually doing something, for example, the guy who took his shirt off, we didn't really have a plan. There was really just, let's just meet up. I was really bored with those dates, and I was I needed...
Because the men had no plan. The men didn't have a plan for the date.
Well, the shirtless guy, he had a plan.
Oh, yeah, he had a plan. He just didn't have he had a nefarious plan. But I always tell guys, and it's in my course. It's you always set the tone and you take the lead. You always have a plan for the date. Always. If he was one of my guys, he would tell you exactly. He'd say, "Man, you might want to wear this. This is where we're going," and have a plan. And yes, activities are wonderful. You might be a good dating coach, Michelle. Yeah, because you always want to center it around some sort of fun thing you can do. You don't want to. A first date might be a little awkward to sit and have a long dinner. You don't want to do things like going to a movie because you're wasting time not interacting. So. Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. And
the worst.
So with me, it was for the basketball portion, it was a nice competitive activity.
Sure.
And it impressed them, the fact that I could play. So the fact that I was good at that activity, I felt was a really nice mix. Because I think if you reverse that and you have the guy being really good at it, that is not a turn on for a girl.
Okay, like yeah, well, the guy like beating a girl at a sport, like when no, that's definitely not a turn on. I mean, it's okay. It's maybe it's a turn on if he's out beating other men when he plays, and he's like, yeah, my macho boyfriend, but like beating her, no, that's not going to turn on.
It's not. But the fact that I would go out there and play basketball and I could beat these guys in a game of horse,
Okay.
like it would kind of frustrate them a little bit, but it was really neat to see how competitive they were, and it was kind of like this cute little banter and back and forth. It was always it was a lot of fun.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so what it tells you right away is obviously you are a competitive person. You like to do that. So you're able to immediately, I guess, identify a person that likes that likes to spar, that likes to have fun. And, if they're a good loser, that's a great thing to reveal.
Yeah.
And if they're a gracious winner, there's another thing to reveal. Because I can tell you with my wife and I, when we go into battle, any board game, any mini golf, it's blood sport. Like we turn on each other. It is feisty. We play tennis. My kids don't even want to watch. It's just terrible.
Wow.
But I would identify, for me, in a similar situation, I'd be like, I like this girl. She's competitive. She's got a fire, and yes, she's not gonna like, oh, I don't know how to play. I don't know you. So that is a great idea on your side, and a great idea even for anybody planning the day. Take the lead. Have a suggestion and an idea. Show that you care, because the worst conversation is, where do you want to go to dinner? I don't know. Where do you want to go?
Oh, no, it's the worst.
Because that basically says neither one of us want to go out.
Yeah. It's like I really put no thought into this, and I really don't care what we're doing. So hey, what do you want to do? You want to Netflix and chill, or
Right. That's a great tip.
That's one of the top number one tips for men. Have a plan. Set the tone. Take the lead.
Have someone else write your profile.
Don't make her make decisions about what you're going to do. And competitive women are a lot of fun because they're feisty.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think if you can get to know a woman and what she likes to do,
then
do that, obviously.
Sure.
I mean, if she hates playing darts, don't play darts. Although I was pretty easygoing when it came to that. Like, I don't really like playing darts, and I really don't like playing pool, but like I would do those things, and I'm very competitive, so it was fine.
Sure.
But I guess when you find out what somebody likes to do, that's what you do.
And another thing I might add, because like you want to like have a suggestion and have a plan. But if she has a counter offer, something she'd really like to do, you can be flexible by all means.
Oh, for sure.
But just don't let her like make the whole plan. Don't put that on her shoulders.
Right.
But so I don't really want to play darts. I want to play basketball. Okay, great. We'll do that, and then you make that happen.
Yeah, and one other thing I would say, so in the whole dating thing, I think, like from my perspective, like I would always tell people would ask me like, how's it going? And I'd say I got a lot of pots, in the fire, pots on the stove, I would say, because every like relationship took a lot of cultivating to get to that first date, because I felt like guys aren't just going to go and take you out to dinner or take you and even buy a drink if you're not like worth it, so to speak.
Okay.
And so the amount of time it took to build that like trust and that relationship was like sometimes a couple weeks before they would take you out on a date. So it's like you've really got to like cultivate this relationship. And at the time, I didn't have the kind of time to do that one at a time. So I would have sometimes like 6 different conversations going. One might be just starting, one is like in the midst, and then another one we're meeting tomorrow, or whatever the case might be.
Wow, you were like running a business there.
It was, because I didn't have a lot of time, because I really only had the summer, and I had,
And you said something interesting. Men aren't going to like get real invested in taking you out to dinner unless they think it's going somewhere. So what is your take on men? Do you think they're like much more cautious these days? I mean, what would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like insulting at first. I was kind of like, well, I thought this was going to be, you take me out for dinner and this is what a first date looks like. But I learned real quickly it doesn't have to look like that. And then when I would do a dinner with someone, it was like, oh my gosh, this was too long.
Yeah.
I already know this isn't a match for me. So I don't think it has to be dinner. I think that was maybe my preconceived notion that that's what it was going to look like, and it certainly didn't.
Okay.
But I didn't feel like anybody was real quick to, let's meet up and see if this is a thing, until you like really were committed to messaging every day.
Yeah.
And showing that. I think what it felt like to me is that I had to show them they were the only one.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of guys have been burned, and I can tell you a lot of the common dating advice out there for men is don't go, buying a dinner the first night. Go get go meet for drinks, see if there's any chemistry, and then if you want, that's what most of them are taught, and for them it's sound, because a lot of guys have, they've got their own stories, and there's women out there who do like to take a free ride and like flaunt the sexy and get a free dinner out of it, and they're not really interested in dating. Yeah. And so men are cautious about that. And so it sounds like you were doing it right. You understood that it took a little bit of time to cultivate, so you had multiple irons in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Which is appropriate at that stage.
I
absolutely.
think so. I mean, if I was dating somebody, even on a second date, I would, back off on the other things just to see where it would go.
Sure.
But one of the things I noticed too, and I'm sure this has to do with like just the times changing. Everybody is texting, and not many people get on the phone anymore. It's almost taboo.
Yeah.
But that was something that I thought I would have liked more of, is just a phone conversation.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, and you know what? I text as much as anybody, but especially when you're in a situation where you're dating someone new, and you're trying to cultivate that personal relationship, there's nothing like a phone call. Yeah. There really isn't, and it is special. And I think you're probably the last. You're close to my age. We're probably the last generation that values that. Yeah. I think millennials today are like, phone call. Are you kidding me?
I wouldn't dare pick up the phone. And even now I have friends that call me and they're like, I hope it's okay that I called you. And I'm like, of course, yeah, you can call me.
Yeah.
So, but when I dated, and I will say one example, I had this one guy. Well, here's another thing. When I would date, being in Appleton area at the time, people would be from maybe Green Bay or from Oshkosh, which is like a 20-minute, 30-minute drive.
For everybody who's listening, Michelle is from Appleton, Wisconsin. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. If they would come to me. So some guys would have me go to them and drive to go, and I just don't think that's appropriate. I think that the guy should meet the girl in her home area.
I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just think out of safety and things like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I did have this one guy who wanted to meet in Oshkosh, and I was very unfamiliar with where he wanted to take me. It was a billiards place, lots of pool tables, and so anyway, we had happened to talk on the phone, and I learned real quickly he was a hothead, and so.
How did you learn he was a hothead, if you don't mind me asking?
How did it reveal? How did his hot-headedness reveal itself on a single phone? Because you would think someone gets you on the phone, they're about to put their best foot forward.
Yeah, this has got Don and I very curious. How did that happen?
Well, I really, I think I was asking him, where we were going, and it was he was very, short-tempered or something about it, and I said, well, we can, meet in Oshkosh. I said, that's fine, I've just never been to this place before, and he was, overly cocky about, what's the big deal?
Wow.
That we would go there, and so, but anyway, it was just enough of a red flag, whatever he gave off to me at the time, and so I ended the conversation, and then I waited a little while, and then I messaged him and said it wasn't going to work for me to go out with him, and he left me a few choice messages that really, so it showed me my feelings were exactly dead on. He was a hothead, and that he just went off on the phone and said, I'm like everybody, and, how dare you cancel on me, and, almost threatening me.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Yeah, lesson number 2, don't be a douchebag. I mean, wow. And I've heard stories like this from women. I just kind of can't believe that. Just going off, and that's somebody who's got a lot of wounds, who's got a lot of stuff, if they're going to freak out that somebody canceled on them, and men on dating apps and stuff, some of them I question their motives. Michelle, I got to be honest with you. I have an article on the website about it. My top online dating advice for men is delete all your apps and get out in the real world and meet people. And, because I really think that while it does facilitate meetings, it creates some interesting new problems, like what you've been talking about. It's like, you text for a while, then you've got to get together and see if it's going to work. And so you end up, you can meet people, but you got to work the numbers, because most people aren't going to work out.
Eventually, you're going to have verbal and in-person conversations. So you could be wonderful in text message format. You could be wonderful in email. But you got to get out there. You've got to test, let me hear how this sounds coming out of my mouth. And, unfortunately, we all learn the hard way. Sometimes, that wasn't funny at all. In fact, that was almost, I have to apologize for it. But, that's eventually a good relationship is going to come down to conversation.
And at least if, you meet somebody at a party, you're standing there with the person and you can tell immediately if you're vibing or not. You get that in-person sense. And, you could go on for weeks communicating with someone online before you get to that first step of, do we vibe? And so... this is very valuable, and men need to be a little more careful. Have a plan, be nice. You don't have to be a doormat by any means, but be nice, be civil, show what a good guy you are. And if it doesn't work out, okay, have you ever had a guy ghost you? That's a big complaint I hear from a lot.
Set up a date and not show up,
or go on a nice date, it goes well, and you never hear from him again, because this is a big complaint I hear from a lot of women.
Oh.
I don't know.
I did have one guy that ghosted me, okay. And I, of course, with social media, you can Facebook stalk people.
Yeah.
And I looked on his Facebook page, and I think he was still, it was too recent from his last girlfriend, it looked like.
Okay.
Based on when they had posted pictures. But we would go out on a date and everything would be fine, everything would be good, and then I wouldn't hear from him for a while, so I kind of just thought, okay, it's not anything.
Okay.
And then I would move on to the next thing, and then there he would be, and he'd pop up again, and he'd say, hey, what are you up to?
Okay.
It was almost like a convenience thing.
Right, just when he didn't have something else to do, he'd give you a call.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So were there any situations where somebody else might have had a rubric on you and they ended it? Ooh. And did you learn anything? I mean, did they end it well? Was there anyone mature that was just able to tell you maybe why you weren't right for him? Did you have a good experience? Did you have a crazy experience?
Well, all in all, I mean, I've had really good experiences with dating. I really liked everybody that I met, and a lot of people say, tell me your craziest stories, and I really don't have a whole lot because the guys were really nice. Even the ones that I just didn't connect with, they were very, very nice. Aside from the guy who took his shirt off, because he later in the evening took more off than that. So
wait, he took more off than that later on in the evening? So you haven't told the best part of that story yet.
He didn't end. He's our friend. So it didn't end at the shirt off. You were just like, could you put your shirt on and then continue the date?
Okay, we just got to hear the rest of the story right now, Michelle.
Okay, so I can't remember if we went to another place. I think we went to another place.
Did he put a shirt on when he went in the place?
Yes.
Okay.
He put his shirt on.
Okay.
Thankfully, but it was now this thing. I don't know. So he took it, whatever. So, right. I'm pretty sure it was that same day. But it could have been maybe the second. I think it was the same day. Let's just say it was the same day. But he took his shirt off in the parking lot, and I was kind of taken aback. And I think, it was earlier on in my dating, so I'm like, well, this is very weird, but I kind of let it go. And so we went to another place. Anyway, he ended up back at my place. Okay. And I can't remember what happened. I think, he was kissing me or something like that. I turned around. I can't remember if I was like, I'll be right back. And I turn around, and he's standing there with his pants down.
Okay.
And to me, I was so taken aback. That's just not on a first date. I'm not, a second date even. I'm just not. That's not my speed. So he got very upset with me not, taking his advances, and so he went to the casino afterwards.
Okay.
He was a professional gambler.
Well, he definitely was. He's all in.
Yeah.
Both
Yeah.
both occasions.
That was a roll of the dice, man.
Right.
Takes the shirt off in the parking lot, pants off at home.
It was like 0 to 60.
Yeah.
You know, it was hardly any really lead up. I mean, it was too much.
Wow. He doubled down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doubled down on that bet. Wow.
All in is what he said.
Well, that's amazing to hear these, because there are some obviously advantages when I think about, if you said you were 37 and dating, and my friend here is in his 40s and dating. Well, the apps, I don't know how you would do it in a world before apps, before all these dating sites, where there is this ability to meet lots of people and really kind of weed through people. And it's good, right? Because if
you had to get out of the house and do things. You had to, like, if you looked at a woman and you thought she was attractive, you'd actually have to walk up and start a conversation.
Oh yeah,
I mean, these are these very hard things that we
have to have a line.
Or something. I mean, even if you were, you were authentic and you just walked up and screwed up the first line, and she thought you were charming. I've screwed up a few first approaches. I mean, bad. But it was just funny, and it ended up working out. And so, yeah, that really does work better. And another thing I want to comment on, because Michelle, you've got me thinking about it, is a term, and this is for the audience, for you guys listening, calibration. You need to calibrate the situation that you are in. There's no excuse for, we're laughing at the shirt guy. There's no excuse for completely miscalibrating a situation so badly.
Yeah.
It's like when you'll know if you're paying attention to her and the cues that you're getting from her and the interaction with her, you'll know when it's time for the clothes to come off.
Exactly.
And that's just crazy. It's like, I remember reading this, when Me Too was really blowing up. There was this story about comedian Aziz Ansari, and this dorky, you know who Aziz is, and he got Me Too'd by this 22-year-old photographer he was on a date with, and she chronicles this very awkward, they go back to his apartment, and he's like kind of coming on to her, but she's not really into it, and it's just your classic, the guy is in his own head, he's not listening to her, he's not taking cues from her and where she's at, and just thinking, I'm the man, and so you're going to have sex with me.
Right.
And I'm like, man, it's like, this just seems to be this disconnect that guys have. They have these expectations. They probably watch too much porn, and they think that all women want to have sex with them right away on the first date.
Right.
And that if they don't somehow score that they've screwed up on the first date, and other men are going to think they're a loser. And so I would say, be in the moment, pay attention to the woman that you're with. You'll know. She'll kind of let you know when it's time. You'll just sense it coming from her. I don't know a better way to describe it.
Well,
you're exactly right.
Yeah.
I have to admit that I am going to try the instantaneous pants off move somewhat soon.
Try it. Yeah, let me know.
Because I never have. I'm always waiting for signs. I like a conversation, maybe a glass of wine. I'm going pants off.
Go pants off, and then we're going to have Kathy on the show after you try that, so she can let us know how it went.
Yeah, she'll be asking questions about what dating. Right. Oh, yeah. I said she'll be. What apps was Michelle using to date? That it'll be over by then. But I gotta
I knew a guy. I used to work for a guy who taught sexuality for men, and he always said that it was sexier for women when you start undressing her first. Your clothes should not come off first, and that makes a lot of sense to me, because if she's like if she wants to start taking clothes off, because it's almost more dominant. You got your clothes still on, and she's exposed, and that like kind of gets her like her fantasy, her romance novel fantasy going about being vulnerable and the strong man, and these things are very important and powerful for turning a woman on. Guys, you want to turn a woman on, don't turn her off. Keep your shirt on in the parking lot. So, these are, some of these things I can't believe we have to say, but yeah, keep your, it's really true. And, some guys are going to listen to this and they're going to hear that. And it's probably the first time they've ever been exposed to an idea like that, because they're getting so much bad stuff in the media. And, they watch crappy TV and play video games, and that's all the input that goes into their brain. and they're just wonked out. So, wow.
And we've talked about this before. Some guys don't have a network. So
Yeah.
they don't get to share a story like that and have all their guy friends
That's
look
right.
at them and say, "You did
Yeah,
what?"
huh? Yeah.
And so he might be operating in a bubble thinking like, "Okay, I don't know how this works, but maybe this is what happens."
That is absolutely true. So many men are isolated. Michelle, I think like you talk about that guy who got angry with you for canceling.
Yeah.
He is probably one lonely dude.
Yeah.
I mean, and when I mean lonely, I don't just mean he's not getting female companionship. He probably doesn't connect with buddies a lot. He's probably one of these guys who has become isolated, and this is also very common. A lot of the guys who come to the Alpha Shift are in this situation. They get up in the morning, they go to work, they come home, eat dinner, have a beer, whatever, play some video games, do whatever, go to bed, get up in the morning, start over, and that's their life. That's their depressing life, and they're living in quiet desperation.
Yeah. So it becomes adversarial.
Yeah, and I think that makes a difference, like going out there and having your group of guys, even if it's guys, like that you hang out with so that you're around people. I think you're right. That makes a big difference.
Well, and you know what? Let's say you see a cute guy in a bar or a restaurant. You might wonder a little bit if he's sitting there by himself looking a little creepy. But if he's there with a group of 10 guys, it's like, okay, he's hanging with his boys. It's much more, okay, he's almost like socially proofed that somebody likes to hang out with him.
Yep.
And so... that and now granted, if you go and like have dinner like by yourself, that's fine too. But if I do that sometimes. I'll like stop into a restaurant if I'm on my way home, or and I'll sit up at the bar. But I'm not looking to meet women. I'm just happily talking to people. I'm not looking for anything, and so I don't have that creepy energy.
Yep.
Right, and I think the best advice I would give a guy, and this is a lot of like what I do in health coaching too, is just like networking. Mm-hmm. But I would tell the guy, like, go practice on the person you're not interested in. Go practice with the person in line that has, something common to what you have, like at the grocery store. You both have something in the cart that's a similar thing. Practice starting conversation with people that you don't want to date. Because you will get so good at just like talking with people that's when it will organically happen. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, hey, what, you want to exchange numbers or whatever?
That's fantastic advice, Michelle. Yeah, when you just get used to being a social person, then it becomes natural. And then when you're interacting with someone you are attracted to, it does flow effortlessly because you've
practice.
Yeah, you've ground in those neural pathways. You know how to talk to people. And when you're this introverted, shy, painfully shy guy who doesn't have a lot of interaction in his life, and he so desperately wants to have a woman in his life to make him feel loved and validated, that's a toxic trap to be in.
Right. Got to work on making the creepy smile a friendly smile.
Yeah.
So take some practice.
And because if you've got lack in your life, dating someone or bringing a woman or a girlfriend into your life isn't going to fill that lack.
Yeah.
It's just going to exacerbate it.
So without embarrassing Pete, and you don't have to tell us, obviously that went right. Our friend Pete, you're married now, and you both come from previous marriages, and you both bring children into this marriage. So do you remember looking at the rubric without exposing all of his grades, because we know what he would pass and fail? Like how was it? Right. Yeah. How was it right? Like, what were the things that started like, okay, well, he's not A+ everywhere, but this is just a great guy. What did it look like when it really felt right?
So here's what kind of happened with my rubric is in the beginning, I would go on a date, I would come home, and I would, give them a rating and see what their score was. And then I'd go on another date and do the same thing. And what would happen is sometimes the better score didn't always mean the better connection.
Okay.
And so I learned real quickly, like it was what the rubric did for me was it gave me, it was a benchmark and where to start to see what was important to me. And soon what happened was I stopped using the rubric altogether. So, and I think it helps me because I like to use the example, like if a guy says, like, what kind of girl do you go for? And he's like, well, I like blondes. They know their type, and they go out to a bar and they're sitting there and they see a girl they're attracted to and she's got blonde hair. All of a sudden he's like, oh my gosh, this girl's my type. Let's see if this works. Because all he's kind of thinking about is like what his type is, what she kind of looks like, maybe what her hair color is. And so that's kind of as far as that maybe goes. And he's not quite sure what else to talk about. So the reason the rubric I think is so important is not necessarily on how anybody else scores against your rubric. It's so that you understand who you are and what you're looking for.
That's very
So
interesting.
when you put in there, like, I want, for religion, I want them to be Catholic. In my case, I wanted them to be Catholic, or, with their family relationships, or the kind of job that they have, or what intimacy looks like for me. All of a sudden now, you see a blonde in the bar, let's say a guy. He sees a blonde, oh my gosh, she's attractive, I'm attracted to her. But now all of a sudden the focal point is not what she looks like or those, appearance things. It's what is my rubric and what is really important to me at my core, and what do I need to learn from her to see if she fits what I'm looking for. And so what it does is it allows you to really hone in on what's important to you. And once you do that one time, you score it on the rubric, you figure out how that all came out as far as points or whatever and how you felt afterwards. And then you do it again and you do it again. Pretty soon you no longer need the rubric because the rubric is you. And you just know who you are.
You know who you
so
are.
now
you
see someone and you're like, oh my gosh, they fit me because I know me so well.
Do you think, Michelle, sometimes going through this process, creating the rubric, do you think sometimes your standards or things that are important to you change as what you value is revealed more? Like,
absolutely.
Like, for instance,
Yeah.
it's not so important that he owns his own home. It's okay if he rents or something.
Absolutely.
You
You learn that everything is on a continuum, and everything is. So you might forgive in one area because the other one scores so high, and you're so attracted to that part.
and that's
So
more,
it
and you realize
really-
that part's more important to you, maybe.
Yeah.
As you go through the
Look,
process.
and it all depends on your life experiences too, because the first guy I had a long relationship with, I dated him after the first online date. He turned out to be like agnostic or atheist. I'm not even sure, one of the two. But that was such a turnoff for me, and not made apparent in the beginning, but I realized that over time.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next guy that I got into a long-term relationship with was Catholic.
Okay.
And I loved that about him. And that was all I paid attention to. I kind of forgot about the other things.
Okay.
And that turned out not to be a match because I was paying too much attention to that one thing that was lacking from the other. So your life experiences are going to make different domains in your rubric, so to speak, pop out and be more important at different times in your life based on what experiences you've had and who you've been with.
Wow.
But yeah, I think those things can change. And I think that, in my mind, I was looking for somebody who scored all threes and maybe a couple fours.
Okay.
But the truth is that you tend to say, well, this is okay in this area because there's other things that are so great that you love in other areas.
Okay, that's very interesting. I love that. Because as Don knows, I'm very much into numerology and knowing oneself in an astrological sense, in a karmic sense, and I've really kind of dived into that because I find a lot of value and validity in it. And I think that I don't know that I would get into a long-term relationship again without like running the numbers on her. and and like really seeing if it's going to be compatible, because it really is. It's like an investment. And a lot of times, like I had a relationship expert on the show last week, and who really knows this stuff. And sometimes she said sometimes the math just doesn't work out. You're a good person, she's a good person, but you're not jiving because your math codes, the code that you're written in doesn't jive. And so I'd like to figure that out. And your rubric is one way of doing that.
But it's good. It's good when you can accept an evolution and accept some flexibility. Which even with the numbers are a good starting point.
It's a good starting point. Yes, you're not gonna live by it dogmatically.
Right, but if the numbers aren't quite there, but you go out and you just find that this is the funniest girl that you've ever sat across the table with, and she's making you laugh, and then again, and like I want to see her again, like you're gonna weight some of the other numbers a little lower because like my sides hurt. I'm laughing so hard.
And my Vedic astrologer says, has taught me that if your numbers if it doesn't quite jive, there are some things you can do to smooth it over. Right. If you're, there are some. If you're not too far off, there are things you can do to smooth over a seeming disconnect. If you really connect. But yeah, I think that because we tend to go on very external things. Women, they want a guy who the like 6 feet tall, doesn't have any kids. A lot of women. I'm not saying you, Michelle. Doesn't have any kids from a previous marriage, makes 6 figures, has his own house. Da, 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 da. Men want that perfect ass and the long blonde hair and all these things and both of us, the men and the women, kind of figure out along the way that these standards that we have erected for ourselves really aren't what's going to make us happy. It's not what's going to make us feel loved and feel good.
Right. The whole world isn't John Hamm and Charlize Theron.
Yeah.
That we all are varying degrees and flaws and strengths. And...
I want to be Don Draper. I love Don Draper. I know. I want to be, But yes, it's true. And you know what? And John Hamm and Charlize Theron, they're not. They can be perfect and sexy and all those things, but they're not necessarily happy or fulfilled. Don and I talked about Charlize Theron specifically a couple episodes ago, and there was an article about she was quoted as saying, "I am shockingly single," like as to say, what the hell is wrong? Where are the men? She's 43 years old. Has been single for 10 years apparently, and this is a beautiful woman, a movie star, but you have to be dateable. You have to be
approachable
out there. A man has to feel that you're going to need and value him. I mean, men need that, and so someone like Charlize Theron has a unique challenge in that she is powerful and wealthy and it doesn't need anyone for anything. In the traditional sense. And so it's like she's got to kind of open up, be more feminine, be inviting. I could coach movie star women.
Yep.
I could coach movie star. Oh my God, that's what I should do. Forget these guys. I'm going to go coach movie star women. I could charge them the big bucks. I could be like the Hollywood dating guru for the starlets. I think I just found a new career.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll have to edit that out before someone steals that idea.
Before someone steals my idea. Right. Yeah. So, wow. Well,
one of the things in my rubric, too, and I call it the Steve factor. So I met this guy right around the time I met my first husband, and he was like, he had this way about him that was like, it was like I call it the Steve factor. If you knew the guy, you would understand. He was a great guy.
The what factor?
Steve was his name.
Steve factor.
Okay. Steve. Yeah, Steve factor. So, like, he was the guy that everyone wanted to be around, and he just had a great personality. He made you feel good, and everybody felt this way about him. And since he's actually passed away, he ended up having brain cancer, which was so sad. Wow. But anyway, I put in my rubric the Steve factor because I wanted to find somebody that had those elements of greatness. And so, like, my best advice would be to, like, for guys, like, who is it that, and I'm not talking about a girl who, like, is a perfect 10 on looks and appearances. I'm talking about somebody, like, you pick somebody in your life that is inaccessible to you. You're not going to date her, you're not going to do anything like that, but somebody who you just really, really enjoy being around, and you're not attracted to her, but there's something about her that you really, really like, the way that she makes you feel. Yeah. You speak of her, you speak very fondly. She has endearing qualities. Decide who that person is, and that's your, whatever her name is, factor.
Sure.
And then that on your rubric, that's what you're also looking for, is somebody that fits that criteria of that greatness that you're looking for.
That's great. It's funny you said the Steve factor, because right around the time you knew this guy, Steve, a movie came out, and it was called The Tao of Steve. And it was about this guy, this 30-year-old overweight, he was like a school teacher in the movie, and he's got like all this magnetism with women. And he called it like The Tao of Steve, and it was Steve McQueen and two other Steves that I can't remember. And it was like about like you need to be excellent, you need to like be gone, meaning like be scarce, don't be all up in her face. And he had like these three factors, and it was kind of a really good movie about how to be with women. And I actually there's an article up on my website all about the Tao of Steve and about these three factors. I'm not remembering them right now, but it's true. It's like the Steve factor. And I would suggest to men too. Yes, you want a woman who's got that magnetism, but to men I would say be magnetic. Develop that in yourself, and that comes from self-love, that comes from self-confidence, that comes from actually doing internal work. and being the other end of the spectrum from a lonely douchebag. And that, and you need to have a group of friends around you. You need to do work on yourself. You need to like shut the video games and the TV off and read a good book. And I don't mean like a fiction book. I mean books about improving yourself and about the way you thinking right. You using the law of attraction. And I'm big into that stuff. And it makes a difference. It ultimately it raises your vibration, makes you more attractive, and gives you the Tao of Steve. And the Steve factor. And so, that would be, because Michelle, we got to wrap it up here in a minute, but that's like a great note to kind of wrap up on, is the Steve factor.
Can I say one more thing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so the biggest turn on for me, and I think that this is true for all women, is one thing, and it is confidence.
Yes.
Yep.
A guy who is confident is a huge turn on. I'm not like cocky and not like overly confident, but just in general, having confidence in themselves, it is, for me, it's like up there.
Right on.
Number one.
Like you would say, just like a quiet confidence. He knows he's got it handled. He lets you know he's got it handled, and he doesn't have to be braggadocious about it.
Oh, that was beautiful. A quiet confidence. I love that.
Quiet confidence. Guys, you need the Alpha Shift course. I'm just saying. Michelle says so.
You need to pay attention to this episode. Listen to it again, and just know that you have to get your own act together.
Yes.
And because someone is looking at all the different factors and facets of your life. And it's not just because you have a boat, and it's not just because you're Catholic. It's not just because you have a Jeep or play basketball. It's all the parts put together is what Michelle is telling us. And
absolutely.
I really like your advice about thinking of the total package on the other side. Like who is the Steve that you want to date, that you just think would be the perfect package, the person you would love to take home to meet your family, the person you'd love to take to a family wedding, the person you'd love to take out on a date and just like let the whole world see, like, yeah, I'm dating this amazing person. Not even this lady, this amazing person.
Yes.
And, I know we have to wrap it up, but
thank you so much, Michelle. I'm going to take this moment to plug something. I make an announcement. I have, and there's going to be a link to it in the show notes for this episode. It's a new ebook that I'm just putting the finishing touches on, and it's going to be available absolutely free to listeners of this podcast. And it basically takes you step by step how to get the Steve factor. Michelle, I'm going to want you to take a look at it too. I'd love for you to read my ebook, and it's going to be available in the show notes. In fact, I might even retitle it or give it a subtitle, The Steve Factor. Because I might just based on this conversation. But there'll be, because I really want to help people. It's my mission here is to help guys get to that, so that when women like you are out there dating, they're having a much better experience, and the guys get what they want to. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm so glad we did this.
This has been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And hopefully Don and I will be able to get out to Wisconsin to see you and Pete sometime this quarter.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Like we were talking about. But anyway, thank you so much. What a great interview. Don, any final words before I close it out?
No, I just need to... I need to take a lot of the lessons from what Michelle just told us and apply that even to my old marriage, because it's great advice.
It is. It's wonderful wisdom. I am going to make sure every guy on the subscriber list listens to this podcast. Michelle, thank you so much again. Everyone, this is Dave Kruger signing off, Alpha Shift Radio. Hope you enjoyed this evening, and we will see you next week. Look in the show notes for the download. See ya.
Have a good night.